Okay, today I'm joined by the recipients of the Educator of the Year Award from Central School, Mrs. Ayanacone, kindergarten teacher, and Ms. Pech, school counselor. And thank you both for joining me today and for being willing to share your stories a little bit with me. And Mrs. Ayanacone, if you could start by introducing yourself and your history in the Warren Township Schools.
Sure. I'm Patsy Ayanacone, and I began teaching in Warren in 1992, quite a while ago. Started out as a general education teacher in grades K through second. In 1999, I actually stepped back from teaching to stay home and raise my family. And after 11 years of being at home, I was ready to return. And I was just so grateful that Warren actually had an opportunity for me to return to actually Central School, this time in the role as special education teacher. And over the course of all these years, I've taught both gen ed and special ed, K through 5. And recently I realized how long I have been here because one of my recent kindergarten students was actually the son of a student I had in first grade when I was pregnant with my oldest son. So wow, it's all full circle now.
It comes full circle, yes. Wonderful. And how wonderful that you were able to come back to the same place you were after taking that time off.
It was amazing. And to be honest, it was the only place I reached out to initially. I figured I was going to hopefully return, and I was so grateful that it worked out the way it did.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Ms. Pech, tell us about your history in Warren.
Mine's a little shorter. My name is Ms. Pech, and I'm the school counselor at Central. And I first joined Warren Township in September of 2017 as a leave replacement. And then I was hired back the next year as a tenure track.
And why don't we continue with you? Tell us about why you got into education and counseling specifically in the first place.
Sure. So I've known I've wanted to be a school counselor since my senior year of high school. I actually did my senior project on school counseling. And I think from an early age, I recognized the benefit of talking about your emotions and the importance and privilege of having a strong support system. But I also recognize that some of my friends struggle talking about their emotions or lacked a strong support system. So I became someone that my friends could talk to about these things, have difficult conversations, and follow through on my friends who I knew were struggling. So that initially sparked my interest with counseling. But then I chose the school setting because of the opportunity just to reach more kids. As we know, kids spend so much time at school, 35 hours a week, and so much growth happens here and social emotional learning happens here. And I knew I wanted to be part of all aspects of it. And I feel very lucky to have such a unique roles in schools. Because while the academic piece is super important, I think the social emotional learning is essential.
Wonderful, thank you. And Mrs. Iannacone, your origin story, why did you go into education originally?
Well, teaching runs in my family. My mom was a teacher. My grandmother was a teacher. As a kid, I spent a lot of time with my mom in her classroom and just felt very comfortable there. It seemed natural. I always just assumed I would be a teacher. And a fun fact is my sister, Kathy Lazis, she teaches at the Warren Middle School. And I'm proud to say that their tradition is continuing. Our oldest son is a high school special education teacher.
Wonderful. It's amazing. There's a lot of those kinds of family tree stories. And probably those days you were spending in your mom's classroom, you were not prepared for the experience over the last 8 to 10 months. Right? So why don't we shift to that topic? And can you talk a little bit about what's been the most challenging aspect of teaching, especially the grade level you teach, in this COVID-19 environment?
Well, to be honest, the whole prospect of returning virtually in that hybrid model was quite scary, knowing that primary age students learn best from hands-on opportunities and realizing that I wouldn't be able to provide an optimal amount of those for my students was very scary and challenging. And let's face it, 5-year-olds struggle to work technology. So that in and of itself was a whole other component. And I have to say, I guess over the course of the spring and this year, I have learned more about technology myself than I ever could have imagined. So that whole virtual technology aspect was scary and challenging. But I love the way we came back as a team and, working collaboratively with Mrs. Mancino at the beginning and having the support of all the parents, first and foremost. They were wonderful with the technology support, as well as our own tech staff. we managed. It wasn't optimal, but we did the best we could. And to be honest, the kids impressed me from day one. I mean, they were resilient. They just seemed to go with the flow. Even to the point of like wearing a mask, I was a little concerned, like how would 5-year-olds be able to do this? And I'm quick to tell anybody, you know, we have no right as adults to complain about wearing a mask. I'm in a classroom with these kids this amount of time, and they do a great job.
Well, and with kindergartners, I would imagine, I mean, this is school as far as they know. This is what school is, right? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out down the road when it goes back to what we would consider to be normal.
Absolutely.
And Ms. Pech, as a school counselor, I'm sure it's been challenging in all different kinds of ways. What have been some of the challenges you faced?
I think probably the biggest challenge or aspect has been getting my groups together. I do a lot of work with groups, whether it's group counseling, student leadership, lunch bunches, class meetings, and it's been difficult navigating getting the kids together physically, but also wanting to be distant and safe. But kind of like Patsy said, if anything, I've learned how resilient and flexible my students are. They are so easy to just be like, let's hop outside for group. Let's find a new classroom. Let's find the gym. Let's find an open space. Let's meet online. Let's meet half online, half in person. So the need for them to connect is still there. We've just had to find alternative ways to do it. And the students have been insanely flexible, beyond impressed with them. And they're teaching me ways. So it's actually really great.
And why don't you keep going with that? Because you've already started the move into what has been a positive, a success, something rewarding. Why don't you continue there? What's something that's been worth celebrating in your experience?
So I think similar to like how I felt about the groups, I was nervous that this year was going to be really hard for me to make my personal connections with my students, that I was going to be almost like disingenuous in this social distant environment. That's definitely not the case. And I owe a lot of that to my students who are extremely eager to connect. So the biggest success, I would say, is just how amazing my students have been in sharing, being vulnerable, talking about their growth, talking about their worries. And I think if anything, this year has kind of brought us together stronger, because I think even like our youngest students recognize that this has been such an emotional year. And when you open up about it and when you talk about it and realize you're not the only one going through this situation, it makes everyone stronger. So it's been amazing connecting with kids this year, especially because of the challenges we faced.
Great. Thank you. And Mrs. Ayanacone, you also started talking about some of the successes, even as you were talking about the challenges. Can you go a little bit further with that, an area of success you'd like to talk about?
Well, I think talking about being connected, when we made the shift and we brought the K through second graders back for the 5 days, you know, not having to be so concerned about the virtual aspect of teaching, it really gave me a different mindset in that I wanted to connect with the kids in the smaller group setting if possible. And again, the kids are flexible and adaptable. We have magic squares here in kindergarten, and they know that that's their safe zone. It allows them to actually work with partners socially distanced. And one thing I struggled to even visualize for myself was meeting with a smaller group. But yet again, we now have our magic X's that we sit on. And I have started modified versions of like Daily 5 and Daily 3. And it really has been working out so well. And I think the whole mindset of giving the kids choices, which look quite different than they did in a typical year where they were able to rotate and experience all these manipulatives, still is working and engaging the kids. They're, you know, given the choices that look different, as I said, but that really helps them stay engaged and allows us to have our small group time, which is so important at this age, at every age.
It's great. And try to project forward a bit. And when your students think back in the future about this time in their lives and this time in their school experience, and I know it's their first school experience with us, what do you hope they'll remember about being in your class?
Well, I want them to know that they made great choices to stay safe and to learn. I also want them to know that it's okay to make mistakes. I mean, we've been grappling with making this the new norm and making it safe and engaging for them. And, you know, we've had bumps along the way, and that's okay because that's the best way to learn. I also hope that they remember that I'm very proud of them and I believe in them. And, you know, they're my kids and they always will be. basically it.
And Ms. Pech, how about you?
I think during this difficult time and always, I want my students to feel heard and seen, and everyone experiences life differently, a pandemic differently. So it's so important to me and my students feel like they have someone at school beyond their teachers that they can talk to and open up to about their experiences in detail. My goal is always that my students leave my office feeling validated and they have the skills and strategies to feel better with whatever feeling they have. And I think overall, I just want them to feel like they came out of this stronger and supported because of our work together.
Well, again, thank you for taking time out of your busy days. We're recording this just the second day back from winter break, and I'm sure there's a million things to do, but it's been nice for me to hear your stories and to be able to share them with others. And I just want to say, again, congratulations on being selected as the Educators of the Year at Central School. Very well deserved. And like educators typically do, you both credited lots of other people, including the students and the parents and colleagues and everybody else, but it's work that you're doing that is why we're open and why kids are learning and feeling supported. So congratulations to both of you, and thank you for sharing your stories with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.